Every Italian last name tells a story of a blacksmith, a nobleman, or a tiny village you've never heard of. But for most of us, that story is a complete mystery. So what if you could finally unlock it? What if that string of letters you've carried your whole life is actually a key, a historical fingerprint connecting you to a past you never knew existed? For centuries, most people in Italy, like in a lot of the world, just had one name. But as the population grew, things got confusing. Imagine a small town with 10 guys named Giovanni. How do you tell them apart? The solution, which really took hold between the 15th and 16th centuries, was the surname. This whole thing was solidified when the Catholic Church's Council of Trent made it mandatory for parishes to keep detailed records of baptisms and marriages. They needed first and last names to stop relatives from accidentally marrying. Suddenly, everyone needed a second name, and how they were chosen tells us so much about our ancestors. Today, we're going to explore the 4 main ways your Italian surname might have been born. We'll find out if your ancestors were named for their job, their hometown, a family trait, or maybe even an old inside joke. Stay tuned to find out which story your name tells. Alright, first up is the most straightforward way surnames were created, by simply using the name of an ancestor, usually the father or the head of the family. We call these patronymic surnames. In a world where your lineage was your identity, being known as the son of someone was the clearest way to say who you were. The most common method was to use the prefix di or di, which just means of or from. So, if your ancestor's name was Angelo, his son might have become known as D'Angelo. If the father's name was Luca, the family became De Luca. This is one of the oldest forms of surnames, and you see it all over Italy. Names like Di Francesco d'Antonio and De Marco all point to a Francesco and Antonio, or a Marco who was important enough to have his name passed down for generations. But prefixes weren't the only way. Surnames were also formed by adding suffixes. An incredibly common one you'll see is I. This ending is often a plural, used to identify the entire family of an ancestor. For instance, the family of a man named Abramo would be known as the Abrami, or the Abrams. The same goes for names like Martinelli, from Martino, or Albertini, from Alberto. These endings, like Inni, Eddie, or Ello, often work as diminutives, meaning little. So, Martinelli could mean the little Martins. In some cases, a first name just became the surname. Think of names like Bernardi, Orlando, or Giuliani. These all started out as popular given names. Surnames starting with Zan, Ian, or even Sia often point to an ancestor named Giovanni, as regional dialects twisted the name into dozens of unique forms. So if your name is Ianon, meaning Big John or Zanetti, Little John, your distant ancestors might have shared the same first name but lived in completely different parts of Italy. Is your last name a tribute to a long-gone patriarch? It's one of the most powerful connections to the past you can have. The family trade, occupational surnames. Next, we have one of the most fascinating categories, occupational surnames. These names are a direct window into your ancestors' daily lives. They don't just tell us who they were, but what they did. In a village, your job was your identity. You weren't just Giovanni, you were Giovanni the blacksmith. The most famous example has to be Ferrari. It's a name we associate with screaming engines and luxury cars, but its origin is far more humble. Ferrari, and its many variations like Ferraro, Ferrara, and Fabri, comes from the Latin word ferrum, meaning iron. It tells you that your ancestor was a blacksmith, a vital craftsman in any town, hammering away in a hot forge. The list of these names reads like a tour through a medieval village. Is your name Barbieri? Your ancestor was the local barber, who, believe it or not, often doubled as a surgeon and dentist. The name Pastor points to a shepherd guiding a flock through the hills. Sartore or Sarti meant tailor, while Molinari meant miller, the person who ground flour for the town's daily bread. Some names get even more specific. Pesci means fisherman. Carbone means coal, likely for a charcoal maker or seller. Farina, meaning flour, points to a baker. Coppola, a common name in Naples, means little hat in the local dialect and was given to hat makers. And if your name is Sacconi, your ancestor probably made bags. Even social status became a surname. Conti means count and was likely for someone who worked in a count's household. Barone means baron and may have pointed to a free man or someone with noble connections. And the name Medici, of the famously powerful Florentine family, literally means physicians. These names aren't just job titles, they are roles in a long-lost society, and a direct link to the skills that put food on your family's table centuries ago. If you're having a few aha moments right now and maybe even recognizing a piece of your own story, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Because next we're going to explore how the very land of Italy shaped your name and you won't want to miss it. A sense of place. Geographic surnames. If your ancestor's name wasn't about their father or their job, there's a great chance it was tied to the one thing that defined them more than anything: their home. Geographic surnames are incredibly common in Italy, acting as a kind of genealogical map. In fact, more than a third of all Italian surnames are based on locations. It all happened for a simple reason. When someone moved from their home village to a new town, the easiest way for their new neighbors to identify them was by where they came from. That guy from Rome? Let's just call him Romano. That family from Naples? They're the Napolitanos? Someone who came from the northern region of Lombardy was called Lombardi. This works for cities big and small. Pisano for someone from Pisa, Fiorentino for Florence, and Tarantino for the southern city of Taranto. Even the name Greco, meaning Greek, points to the historic Greek communities and influence in southern Italy. But it's not just cities. The very landscape of Italy is written into its surnames. The name Costa tells you your ancestor lived near the coast. Monte or montagna means mountain. Fontana was for someone living near a spring or fountain, while Riva meant they lived near a riverbank. The name Della Casa translates to of the house, maybe for an ancestor who lived in a big, isolated, or important house. These geographical clues are gold for genealogy. Even the spelling can hint at a specific part of Italy. Surnames ending in O often come from the south, while those ending in I are more common in the north. For example, Rossi and Russo both mean red, but Rossi is widespread in the north and center, while Russo is overwhelmingly southern. Your name isn't just a name, it's a pin on a map, just waiting for you to find it. A lasting impression: nicknames and descriptive surnames. Our final category is perhaps the most personal of all: names that came from nicknames. These are historical snapshots that capture a unique physical feature, a personality trait, or even a crazy story that made an ancestor stand out from the crowd. These names are often blunt, sometimes hilarious, and always revealing. Many are based on appearance. Was your ancestor tall? Their name might have become Longo for long. Were they short? Maybe Basso, or even Gamba Corta, which literally means short leg. The super common names Rossi and Russo, as we mentioned, likely started as nicknames for someone with red hair or a ruddy complexion. Bianchi means white for someone with fair hair or skin, while Bruno means brown for someone with darker features. And if your ancestor had curly hair, their name might just be Richie. Personality traits were also fair game. The name Gentile means gentle or kind. Forte means strong. Allegretti points to a cheerful person. On the other hand, a name like Gallo, meaning rooster, might have been a nickname for someone who was a bit proud or loud. But this category also holds some of the most powerful stories. The surname Esposito is the fourth most common in all of Italy and number 1 in Naples. It comes from the Latin expositus, meaning exposed or placed outside. This was the name traditionally given to foundlings, abandoned babies left on the steps of churches or in orphanages, and names like Innocenti, the innocent ones, and Colombo dove, a symbol often tied to orphanages, tell a similar story of a child whose family history began with an act of charity. And then you have the truly strange ones. The surname Fumagalli, found mostly in the north, means smoked poultry. The story goes that it was a nickname for chicken thieves, who would fill henhouses with smoke to stun the birds before making off with them. It's a quirky story, but it shows how any unique trait or event could become a name that would stick for centuries. From a hair color to a story of survival, these surnames are the most intimate connection we have to the ancestor who first carried the name. So, whether your name comes from a founding father like De Luca, a hardworking blacksmith like Ferrari, a place of origin like Romano, or a defining feature like Longo, it is so much more than just a label. It's a living historical document. It's a story of lineage, labor, location, and life itself, passed down through hundreds of years, connecting you directly to the vibrant and beautiful tapestry of Italian history. Your surname is a legacy. It's the first clue in the incredible detective story of your own family's past. By understanding its origin, you're not just learning a fun fact, you're reclaiming a piece of your heritage. What's the story behind your surname? Have you figured out its meaning? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to read about your family's history. Thanks for watching.